Alright guys, welcome back to the Samurai build. Believe it or not, I finally got my coilovers in. And this episode we're going to go ahead and install the rear coilovers. So what I went with was is the Factory Racing 2.0 coilovers. And I'll kind of quickly go over why I decided to go with Fox instead of King and all the other companies. And the reason is this one sole reason is this little guy right here. This is called the DSC, which is the dual speed compression adjuster. And it does exactly that. It allows you to adjust the low speed and the high speed compression of your coilover. And with a rig this light and a rig that I'm trying to make pretty diverse, I'm having this adjustment that I can do outside of the coil is going to really allow me to fine tune, you know, how this is going to perform. So this is the reason I went with the Fox, is they're the only people that have the dual speed adjustment. There's Kings. King does have some kind of external compression adjustment, but it's medium speed. If you look into it, it's really a medium speed adjustment. This is a true low speed and high speed adjustment, and that's going to help a lot during the washboard, stability around corners, high speed and low speed stuff, which is what you're going to see out in the desert, which is what this guy's going to see out here. That's another reason I went with these. These are 2.0s. I did really I fought for 2.5s. I really argued that I really want 2.5s for the extra oil, heat dissipation, valving. But you know, after talking to the folks at AccuTune, they did convince me that you're not going to be able to tune 2.5 soft enough for such a light truck. And the reason is that this is not going on trailing arms. This is not going on A-arms. This is going to be mounted directly to the axle. So with that 1-to-1 ratio, you're not going to be able to valve 2.5 soft enough. My spring rate, I think these are 100s, which is basically the lightest you can get. And you can just look at it. I mean, this is light. It's 100 pounds there. And then my secondary spring, I believe, is a 150. This is a 150. You can hardly tell the difference between the size, but the truck is really light in the back. So in the brackets I'm going to use, I kind of picked these up from a bunch of different places online. I actually got these on eBay. These are 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch plate. These are really nice. I like these, and I think it's going to help a lot to align them, since the two tabs are already perfectly, you know, symmetric. And these ones drop right on the axle here. So these brackets are handy dandy. Fox does provide these spacers here, these little silver spacers. These are a little bit more narrow than what I wanted to go with. I want to go with 2-inch spacing, which is what this is. So I did have to get the larger spacers to allow more misalignment and more flex when you mount it. A couple things to keep in mind when mounting your coilover is your bolt should be parallel to the frame. And you can see this is the correct orientation of your bolt, as well as this is the correct orientation of where the bolt would go, parallel to the frame. This allows the coil to articulate outwards, because that's where most of the articulation is going to happen. Keep in mind is that you want to have at least 5 degrees of inward tilt of your coilovers. Your coilover needs to tilt inwards 5 degrees at least. That's what's recommended. If you start to go any more, like 15, 30 degrees, you're gonna have to recalculate your spring rate. So another reason I'm using these pipe stands is that I can get the frame really level, just so we're level relative to each other. Again, here at the frame down there is nice and level. So when I'm bringing stuff up, like to the coils, I know that if I'm truly level, I know that the whole vehicle is truly level, at least relatively, because this floor is at a slight angle. And all right, so I'm gonna install the coilovers at full bump, which means I need to make clearance to bring this axle up at full bump. 6 inches is gonna put me right about up here. So I'm gonna cut this, since this is gonna be my clearance issue. I'm gonna cut these tabs off, and then I'm gonna bring everything at full bump. So a little technique cutting some tube, especially if it's still on the truck. I get some masking tape and I wrap it around. And all I do is I align the edge with the masking tape since it's really straight. That allows me to cut, you know, nice and clean versus trying to measure off one spot and tracing it around in a circle. All right, I got the big 40-inch tires mounted. This thing looks freaking ridiculous, but plenty clearance. We're about, I would say like 6.5 inches of up travel. This is what full bump would look like. Plenty of room. During articulation, it's definitely gonna hit, so we can just taper this in. We'll figure that out later. But I'm liking how it looks. I think the pinion is actually unnecessarily angled. I mean, we'll see how that handles. Worst case, we put longer links to put it back to a different angle. But yeah, let's step back and kind of look how ridiculous this looks at full bump. It's funny. So some of you guys might question what in the world did I do here, but this is my 14-inch coil completely compressed. I decided to only leave an 1/8 inch of shaft show when I'm at my theoretical full bump. Like I said earlier, I'm going to be installing this coilover when the truck is at full bump. So this is as high up as this axle is going to go, which means when I mount my coilover, it needs to be completely bottomed out. And this is my theoretical bottom out, where we still have 5/8 of rubber from the rubber bump stop, but we also have a little less than 1/8 of an inch of shaft show. This is just to protect the coil. And all I did is I used simple straps. I used long bolts so I can ratchet it down. And the reason I did this is because I don't have a nitrogen setup to refill it. So if you have a nitrogen setup, just dump the air and it would be a lot easier to compress this. This I think has 200 PSI of. So this is with the fully compressed coil installed. Kind of see where it's gonna live. It's a little low, I wish it was a little bit higher, but 16 inches is mud truck coilover. This is as long as I really wanted to go, but that's kind of how she sits. I'm gonna get these brackets straight. Here's my clearance between my wheel. I hope that's enough, because I know when this wheel's down and this wheel's up, this tire's gonna be at an angle. Man, I hope that's gonna be enough clearance. On worst case, I have to reposition that or get spacers to put that wheel out a little bit. But I'm gonna aim for, you know, about a hand of gap. And that's about the angle it's gonna sit at. It's defined by this bracket. I'm gonna see if it's 5 degrees. Let's see. So it's actually, this is saying about 12 degrees. All right, so I positioned my lower link, or my lower bracket, just tacked it in place. I have this upper one going. I'm using my little handy dandy laser level to get it nice and level. I'm using this bolt to make sure I'm nice and parallel to the frame. We'll get that tacked on. I am gonna have to fill this pretty thick gap. And the best way to do it is just add a tack here, add a tack there, add a tack here, add a tack there, and alternate, and then you'll get a nice gap filler. And as long as we can do that on the inside and the outside of the bracket, it should be strong enough. So I got one side of the brackets all done and tacked on. I'm gonna use my laser again to transpose it on the other side. So you can see I can get this height exactly right, and then this height exactly right. All right, so got all the brackets tacked in place. Pretty straightforward. Now I'm going to articulate the axle and make sure there's no binding, and then I'll do some final welding. But this is basically, this is, I would say, full extension, full droop. So it was kind of a fail, but that's what it looks like. Obviously I hit the fender, but I hit the shock and doesn't even have the spring on it. Ah, that sucks. I really don't know how, I mean, I really don't want to bring that coil any further in. And the reason is just, I like the angle that this coil sits at. So I put the spring on just to mock it up. This is at one side up and one side all the way down. I do have clearance between the spring and the drum. It does interfere with the tire, so I'm gonna have to change the offset of the wheel or get spacers. But this is what it looks like at articulation, full articulation. I will have to cut these brackets down, but it's not bad. And then the fender will have to be cut more or just removed. We'll see. So here we are, just about at full bump with both coils on, fully welded. Not bad. And this is just about at full bump. And I'm gonna put the wheels on, and we can finally actually put the weight of the truck on these, on the coils for the first time. And there it is. First time held up with these new axles. Nice.